So let's say somebody's starting out right now and they are looking at either purchasing a modest three-bedroom house or maybe even a rent-to-rent type strategy, whether it's for rent to HMO, rent to service accommodation, or a single unit that they've acquired for either HMO purposes, small HMO, or service accommodation. What would you say the things that they need to be thinking about from a design point of view to make it profitable, have tenants that are going to stay long term, and desirable as well from the tenants?
Okay, so okay, so from a designer's perspective, the first thing you really want to do, and I'm not saying, I'm just saying if I say design, I'm saying from a business perspective, because I'm a designer is there to make a business work. They're not there to make it pretty. That's where I think the difference between maybe my thinking about design and an interior designer who's just there to, somebody comes to them and says, I want my house to look pretty. That's different. I would say I'm more of a commercial designer and thinking about how can this product make profit and how long can it make profit for. So if you're asking the question about so you said if you're a new investor, so we're not talking about an experienced investor that might want to up their game. So if you're a new investor, I would say feasibility study is the important thing. So I would, number one, Google what is a feasibility study? Why is it important to do a feasibility study? And I think that's maybe the big mistake that a lot of people make, is that they go to a property meeting, they hear people talking about strategies, but that person that's telling you about their strategy knows nothing about you as a person. They don't know what your end goals are. So I would say, and if you're a business coach or a personal coach, it's what's your why?
Yes.
That's the first thing you start with. What's your why? And a designer will do exactly the same thing. They'll say, okay, what's this product's why? Who's it aimed at? And until you've done any research or even any thinking about it, then you might be buying the wrong product for you. You might be appealing to the wrong customer, or you might be trying to appeal to everybody, which, as we've said, Ford tried to do that. They tried to please, and a load of investors tried to do that, and they achieve average results. So I would say if you want to achieve great results, then I think you do have to be quite surgical about your thinking in terms of what's the end goal.
Yes.
And I ask this question when I do presentations. I say, well, how long do you want to own your property for? And people say, well, I want to own it for a lifetime. Well, if you want to own it for a lifetime, what do you need to do to make that product profitable for a lifetime? The last thing you want to do is not design it right, because if you don't think about design, it's not going to last.
Yeah.
And I think, but your strategy is what's important. How much money have you got? So if it's rent to rent, I'd say they're very different. If you've got cash, then your strategy is going to be very, very different to if you're doing rent to rent. If you're doing rent to rent, then you're signing a contract. And if you don't make profit, then you're going to be having to pay somebody money under contract. So the only thing I can say is in terms of design, I had a client years ago who was he was another property, he did property courses, rent to rent. And I did some work with him. And when I met him, he took me out. I was at a PIN meeting. He took me out he said, I got to buy you a drink, Julian. And he sat down and he said, you helping me has really, really helped. And I said, well, okay, let's put a number on that. How much more profit have you made through applying good design to your properties? He said, well, if I take into account that I wasn't actually being able to rent rooms, they were empty, I'd say we're looking about a 400% increase in profit because we've applied some design work. If you make a mistake with rent to rent, then you've got a real problem. And I think the important thing with rent to rent is knowing your competition.
I
So
like your idea about the feasibility study. You need to go in and understand the market first, what's going on, who your competitors are, what the products are already out there. I think too often people find the property first and then just force a strategy onto it rather than understanding the bigger picture.
it was a big mistake the big mistake I made was thinking that a property was a bargain, buying it because it was a 4-bed, cheap. I didn't really do any study on the
Driven by just the
location.
numbers.
It was just the numbers. I didn't look at the location, and I didn't lose. The only thing I lost was time, luckily, but it was the wrong place. It was the wrong product. and I had to get rid of it. So
And
that was the
we've
big mistake.
experienced that in our HMO letting agency where we've had people ring me up where they've said, I've got a fantastic 6-bedroom house that we've just got ready. Can you let it for us? And send us the details, and we'll come and have a look, and we'll get it organized. And then when I look at the address, I'm thinking, why on earth have you bought in that location? And this is now all the renovation work, everything is done, all the pretty photographs have been taken, and you think it's a bit late to undo that now, because I think about a product and who you're targeting, and the people they have in their mind, the type of tenants they envisage will live in that property will not want to go and live in that area.
So you asked the question right at the beginning, why is design important? Designers will do a feasibility study. So understanding that design is a lot bigger than just getting cushions, and actually a proper commercial designer will do the first thing they're going to do is a feasibility study, and that could be a make or break for an entire project. A lot of people that I've seen do training will be under pressure to find a deal because they don't want to lose face in front of the whole room, and they want to stand up at the end and go, I found a deal, when actually that's not the important thing. Getting the education. Getting the education. I do think there is a place for property education. I was educated through, you said, I didn't know you were a estate agent. I didn't, that was my education. You can fast track that, but if you have no common sense, then you might as well forget the education. Common sense says, if you're going to get involved in a business, what are the rules of business? What are the rules of making profit in the competitive market? And it'll say, know your customer, know your competitor, differentiate your product, provide a great service. Those are the key points. And so whatever the strategy is, whatever level you're going to pitch it at, you've got to remember, do I know my customer? And like I said to you, how many HMO landlords have ever lived in an HMO? They don't know their customer. So they're only going to get average results. If you know your customer, they will stick with you, which is why Apple make so much more profit, because their customers keep coming back year after year. Even though they probably designed their product to fail after 7 years, the customer will come back.